Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're just honored to have you all for a very special session on building purpose in our profile. And I'm I feel so humbled and grateful to be working with such incredible co-panelists. You're going to meet Rosa, Tara, and Theresa really shortly and get to know their incredible work. So just before we get started, just I think I can I can say this from personal experience, and I hope it resonates too. What we're able to do right now with with the motivation that we have, the conviction that we have, the persistence that we have to work through all of the trials, the tribulations, and any of the resistance that we may face comes from believing in what we do. And I feel that so strongly right now is that I'm able to overcome all of the challenges that we face because ultimately the bigger picture means so much more than the little obstacle in the moment, right? And I'm so grateful that I have been able to find my purpose. And it's my wish, it's my prayer, and it's my hope that every single child feels that sense of belongingness with their self and connection with what they do. So they feel content, they feel whole, and they feel fulfilled as they go through life. And I think when you hear the rest of my panelists, you're going to hear a sense of something similar. But that's one of the reasons why we chose a topic like this. So what is it that we're going to do through the course of our session? Sorry, I think my thing is closed. Okay. So in this session, we're going to take you through 4 parts. The first one is what is happening in the world of work today and how it impacts purpose. The second part is looking at the lenses of the world of work and purpose. The third is to deep dive into our inner purpose and helping students find their own agenda. Where do we go from here? So this is the flow of what we're going to go through in today's session. And I want to start by playing a video for all of you. And I'd just like you to clear your mind and just watch it with a fresh perspective. And in perspective of this topic, especially. Can you just play it from there? I think it's not playing from here. Oh, sorry. Is there audio coming through? Okay, initial thoughts, reaction. You see some people look like dumbfounded. Some people are quite surprised, scared. No, okay, the intent of the video was not to create fear that your children are not going to have any jobs in the future. We just put that disclaimer out there first. They will have jobs in the future. But that does bring me to an important point. How many of your students are making decisions based on this fear that, oh, if I don't study this, or if I don't take this secure job and pathway, then I'm going to miss out in the future, and I have to make a decision like that? Ergo engineering, medicine, and all of those potential safe careers, right? The interesting thing is, look at how rapidly the world of work is evolving. This lens of perception with which they're operating, that these are secure careers that I can bank on having a stable future with, is not really the case, because industries are evolving that rapidly. By the time you're in your freshman year or first year of university and you graduate at your fourth year, there's already been a lot of shift in the type of roles, in the type of jobs, the skill sets and qualifications needed for it. So really, I think what I wanted to bring us to the next point is, what is happening in the world of work today basis how rapidly things are changing. This is the statistics of what's happening in the world of work today. 66% of companies are finding it difficult to retain compared to hiring, meaning they're able to get people on board, but people are not sticking around for too long. 85% of global employees are not engaged in their workplace. They just find a lack of connection with their work, and they're just doing it for the sake of doing it rather than being invested in what they're doing. 73% of employees would consider leaving their jobs for the right offer, even if they're not looking for a job. So this is one set of statistics showing us what's not working. And this is another statistics to show what people are moving towards. 74% of people are willing to take a pay cut for a better fit job. So people are intrinsically seeking a sense of connection or purpose with what they are doing. 23% of people will take a new job that does not require a pay increase. And 66% of all new startups are purpose-driven. So this means that people are really looking to create positive social impact and do something that has authentic purpose to who they are as an individual. And I just want to give you a quick example here. I saw an episode of Shark Tank USA where there was a 16-year-old girl, her name was Theresa. She read on the news that one of the girls in her school committed suicide from cyberbullying. And the next thing she did, and she was so deeply affected by it, that she went home, learned how to code for the next 6 months, and created an app called Rethink. So what Rethink did is, every time somebody typed a message of cyberbullying online, the algorithm of the app would detect negative remarks and give a prompt. So it didn't shut down the message, it gave a prompt to say, are you sure you want to send this message? And as soon as the prompt came up, they did a pilot study with 10,000 students. 95% of the students opted not to send the message. So she created behavioral shift through something that was a cause that was so close to her heart, using technology and business as a solution. That was then bought on by some service providers, and it's now integrated in some phone models. Right? So this is an example of how there are, and this is just one, right? There are millions of these purpose-driven startups stemming from what somebody values. Now, although the world of work is showing us this information, that people are not feeling connected to their work, they feel disengaged, they're looking for a deeper connection. If you look at what's happening in school, the way students are still making decisions, these are the top 8 factors based on a survey that students are making their decisions off of. So family expectation, teacher influence, peer persuasion, prestige of the occupation, financial remuneration, interest, aptitude, personality. Now, interestingly, the top 5 factors are all extrinsic factors, and their basis entirely on perception of how things look rather than who they are as individuals. It's not stemming from their purpose, but it's stemming more from what people say they should be doing. And this, I think, comes to the difference between not being able to choose based on what they value as an individual. What an individual values is such a core driver to helping them make an informed choice that will help them be longitudinally successful. I'm not talking about something that will immediately give them, recognition for a brief period or success in spouts, but something that they feel that they value a lot, they deeply care about this, and they want to play the long game. They're willing to invest in this to make a difference, to grow as an individual, and to see a holistic change. People are often not able to drive to this because societally, at least I can speak for here, that when we use the word values, the more intrinsic association to values is the morality of what is right and wrong. Values are like, you should be honest, you should do this. And I hear the word should a lot when we talk about values. And I think it'll be great if we can flip that lens and look at, what do you really care about? That's what you value. And if people had the safe space to be comfortable and authentic in admitting that this is what I really value, it's going to go such a long way in helping them make a decision that is actually right for them. So this is one perspective on how the lack of connection between an individual's value is not helping them find their purpose in the world of work. And what this is leading to is inauthentic self-representation. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Tara to take it over. Oh, sorry, is it Rosa? Oh, so I'm sorry, this is Rosa. Rosa's going to take over from here.
Yes, this is Rosa. Good morning. So yes, thank you so much for that, because when we're talking about values and we talk about the values of what guides your behavior, your motivation, it's important for us to take a little moment and reflect on what are our own values. And the first thing that is clear is that my values may be different to yours. Like, do you dance salsa? Do you love salsa? No, you dance something else, right? But my values are to express myself through that kind of music. But that doesn't mean that we don't share the love for dance, right? So even though we have the love for or a purpose, the way we reflect on it, the way we share it is very different. So when we're in front of our students, it's really important to understand that we share different lenses, and that to meet our students, we have to make sure that we know what ours look like and maybe what theirs look like, right? I can do the clicker. So one of the things that happens with these values is that when students put on lenses that don't belong to them, then they see themselves in ways that doesn't necessarily depict them. And in many ways, the adults in the room are the ones who are shaping that misconception in one way or another. And this is an opportunity for us to start exploring what some of the ways that students are misrepresenting. And the invitation is to find out, or to think a bit about, are we guilty as charged? Or is there something that we can do better? So let's think about these misrepresentations. The first one we all in this room have experienced, the inherited purposes from parents, right? She says, oh my gosh, yes, let me put this in capital letters. Yes, how many times do we have that? The question we have is this because parents hate their children that they want to impose their lives on them? It's actually out of love. It's actually making sure that the students, that their child has a better life than they had. So the intention of having better life or being better or successful might be driving it, but the impact is not necessarily what they signed up for. So let's take a look at this situation, because if we don't have parents on board, the flip side is also that we have a contentious relationship. So we are stakeholders on this. So what can we try when we face this? Well, you know what? Tackle the source, I would say. The first thing is saying, with kindness and with patience, yes, no worries, you can take a photo. With kindness and patience, what is behind this drive of inheriting or imposing or encouraging too much our purpose in life? And I would say that it's not supposed to be 1, 2, 3. It's like the first one is that parents have a feeling that a certain career will not sustain the lifestyle. And that happens a lot with the creative careers, with the designs, and that fear of the starving artists that parents are. So sometimes that stands in the way. And then perhaps sharing information about what the world of looks like, what creativity looks like, the impact of all these startups, of taking these risks, how this can actually enhance the purpose of your child. Maybe that might be a way of helping. Once again, these are not my solutions. There's not a solution, but these are things to think about, ways to approach it. Something else could be that parents want to relive their own aspirations. So they live vicariously. So this is the case of students who are completing the sports that their parents wanted to, or doing the things that their parents wanted to do. So what can we do? Well, one of the things that we can do is that empower and be the voice for that child and saying, hey, your child likes to do this, and constantly drop in the narrative the highlights of the student that make them an individual. One way of doing it, and that's a day-to-day. It's a drop of water every day. Another, as Krithika had expressed before, is the perceived prestige of some jobs and not others. So we have the case of the biases of, for example, women in construction, or we have the biases that constructions or the vocational fields want money, or we have the situations that perceptions that they won't be in a doctor position, they won't be acknowledged by other folks and the peers. So this is a valid point for parents, because of course they want to make sure that they have a prestige, or they have access to being respected in the community. But one of the things you can tackle is then when find role models in your community who are not doctors, but are extremely successful. So then you flip it. Let's talk about success and what does that look like? And what does success look like for what your child wants to do? So when you find a respected model, then you have that transference of, oh, it's not in the job, it's in the individual and how the person can pursue it. That might be a way of tackling as well. So you put visuals and you're shaping the perception as well. Most of the times it's where they want to make sure that their child is financially secure. Like that's why the perception that you have that doctors make more money or lawyers make more money. And this is an interesting factor because maybe your jobs stats occur. One of the things that we did in our schools was particularly bring out the stats, and this is Canadian jobs. And it turned out that a child who wanted to pursue air conditioning and vac in the construction area, when we looked at the stats of what people were making yearly, they were making more than a professional who would work at a university. So trying to bring the stats up from the countries where the students are living might be a helpful way of putting this perception or bridging this notion of imposed values. Let's talk about another way students are not representing themselves.
Thank you. I want to talk about ways that students are actually limiting themselves when it comes to looking at academic majors and really kind of limiting themselves and by a term of an academic major. So I wanted to share some ways that you can assist students in different ways of them looking at academic majors. So first of all, one thing that we see with students is that they tend to get stuck on the name of an academic major. So I'm going to pick on a particular program here, marine biology. So there are, first of all, that's not a very common major, is it? But there are many pathways to get to marine biology. So something that we see students do is they get a term of a career in their heads and they look for that term when it comes to looking at college majors, right? When in reality, there's many different ways, there's many different academic pathways to reach a career. One of the ways is to encourage your students to share their desired careers and then work with the school, with the higher education institution on trying to identify the correct academic pathway for them to reach that. The reason why I picked on marine biology earlier was because with marine biology, there are many different undergraduate degrees that a student can take. They don't need to find an academic major that is only termed marine biology, right? They could take a biology undergraduate degree. They can take a science undergraduate degree. But we know that they will need a graduate degree to actually do marine biology, and they can take that graduate degree in specifically marine biology. There's many other pathways that this can fall under as well, and some of the academic programs are professional programs, right? So when you take a look at becoming a doctor, you don't take a doctorate degree in the beginning, right? You have to take pre-med, a science degree, a biology degree. Same thing with law degree, you don't jump right into a law degree. You start off in pre-law for 4 years, and then you take a law degree for your graduate studies and further. So one thing is that we just really don't want students to be limiting themselves by really looking for the name of the career that they want to do. It's a good idea to just talk with a student and just say, what is your passion, right? What is the career path that you ultimately want to do? And then let's try to identify a good pathway for you to get there. We're going to talk about the human checklist next. Yes.
One other way that I often see students limiting themselves and really constricting themselves is I call it the human checklist. When kids come to me and they have this preconceived notion of how they need to present themselves for university. And it boils down to this weird little like checklist. Oh, I need to have this extracurricular and I need to have this, and this. And all of a sudden they're trying to pretzel themselves into this preconceived notion of who they need to be for some external audience for university. And I find that can lead to great inauthenticity. You know, I've had students and they're like, but I don't play a sport. I'm like, okay, so you don't play a sport. Like, all right. Or, oh, I don't do this. And I'm like, right, but you do all these other things. And so to get students to follow who they truly are, without having to feel like, oh my goodness, I have to go forward and do all of these things that may feel inauthentic to me for some external audience that they think it's the formula that's going to get them to where they want to go. I find it hard. It's also a very sort of strange little linear view about things. If I do A, B, C, and ABC, you know, then this will happen, then this will happen. And I find, you know, codifying things in that way simplifies things for teenagers, but it also can be inauthentic. So many people I have talked to have very nonlinear ways that they've found the work that they do. You know, you dip your toe in a pool, you decide you don't want to swim, you go to a different pool. You know, so one of my counselors went all the way through an MBA. One of the counselors at my school's uni counselor went all the way through an MBA only to realize, wait a minute, I don't want to do accountancy and all of that. So what I would say is, with this, think a little bit, and some of these are also relate to the things that my colleagues spoke about all those external pressures, the parents, the this, the that. Well, here is the list of things you must do. You know, certainly there are academic prerequisites for students who are interested in certain courses of study in uni. We get that, but this idea of I have to fulfill all these categories. And so you wind up having, I've seen students that come to me, they're so frazzled with everything that they think they have to be doing that don't quite speak to them. And I see these students who are just doing all of this, jumping through hoops for what? And I don't think it does our students a great service in finding authentic purpose.
Thank you. So I am a firm believer of accountability, of personal accountability, of when I hear something, how can I change? What am I taking away from here? So let's take a bit of a moment for our own accountability. And this notion comes from like something I want to share with you. On Tuesday, we were presenting for level 2 counselor sessions, and I was just like starstruck that we had Angel Ferris on our board. I'm like, yay. And we had this moment where we were asked to think about our purpose for the day or a purpose for what we're going to do. And I had Angel next to me and I said, what is your purpose? Thinking he's going to say something like, I want people to understand this, or I want people to do this. You know what he told me? I would just like for people to feel joy. To feel the joy that we're here together, connected with people that are like-minded people. And I can't tell you how I'm like, oh my God, I'm the purpose. We're talking about purpose, and here I am getting a lesson on purpose. So I'm going to invite you to have that experience as well. So let's think about our own purposes, our own lens, and we're going to do this together. And here's how we're going to do it. You're going to have 1 minute to find 2 people who are like, I want to say like-minded, but I'm going to say like feedy. Why? Why are we saying feedy? Because I'm going to ask you to look at people, find two people whose footwear has something in common with yours. Either because of the color of their shoes, or they're wearing their shoes, or they're wearing shoes, or their toes are out. I don't know. Your criteria, you define your criteria. You only have 1 minute. You have to find two more people. We're going to make in groups of 3, a maximum 4. Go, find your feety buddy. All right, once you find your feety buddy, sit down together. Sit down together, and you know what? Move those chairs in a circle so you can see each other. Go, make your circles, foodie buddies. Get some chairs, sit around. Get some chairs, sit around. Get some chairs, move them around. Oh, you don't have a buddy. Okay, you can make it so you can chat. 3 or 4 if you feel generous, that's fine. All right, so let's have a seat, everyone. Let's have a seat. All right, is anyone missing a foot buddy? All right, okay. The count of 3, we're all sitting down. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. And anyone without a foot buddy or a feety buddy or a feet buddy, however you want to call yourself, that's fine. All right, here we go. So you're 2 buddy, that's fine. Oh, okay, absolutely fine. So may I have your criteria?
Silver.
Silver.
Okay, we have a silver criteria here. May I have your criteria?
What is your criteria?
Covered shoes.
Belly.
Toes not exposed.
Toes not exposed. Oh, yay. All right, what is your criteria?
Toes exposed and similar.
Oh, you have to say that.
Toes exposed in similar color palette.
There we go. That's a very firm and identifiable category. What is your category for your feeties?
Leather shoes and mostly loafers, but leather is our common.
All right. What about here? Quick to find category?
So it's the color, the pattern.
Color and pattern. What about yours?
Strappy. Strappy and a little bit of cushioning, padding.
Oh, not just the padding, it's like the cushion. Okay. So I am certain that if I continue moving around, I am going to be blown away by your creativity and how you came up with your categories. What did you just do? Did you look at your face and say like, oh, let me see that person who looks like me? Not at all, right? So this is a bit of a breaking the mold, and when we work with students, that's how we take off our glasses. And this exercise that you just did, let's do it together. So we're going to take a few minutes to explore how we look at things and how we share things. This is a really serious activity. So I'm going to ask you to thoroughly channel your inner teacher to analyze all these aspects. I'm going to give you 4 scenarios, and I'm going to ask you to discuss them on yourself. So here's the thing. You only have a minute to discuss. So every time I have a prompt, you have a minute. You don't have to agree, but everyone has to share something. So you're sharing the 60 minutes. I don't know how you're going to do that. Are you ready? Ready, everyone? Okay, here we go. 60 seconds, not 60 minutes. I'm glad the caffeine is right over there. All right, folks, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Let's find some answers. Oh, we did this part. What was Adele's purpose with naming her album in this way? You can Google. Go. 1 minute. 1 minute. I said, go. Take the time. Take the time. Take the time. Take the time. Huh? I don't know. You discuss with your people. All right, did you got it? Okay, no, you're not going to tell me. You're going to keep that. We're going to continue. We're going to talk for points. We're going to talk for points. So everybody got it? Why? Okay. Here we go. So you're talking with your people. You're not giving all your secrets. This is your team. Here we go. Scenario number 2. So I'm going to read it with you and then I'll give you the minute. Okay, here we go. Number 2 is coming here. True or false? Scenario 1, scenario 2. Go read it and decide if each of them is true or false. My folks at the table are taking the time. Oops, yeah. Time? All right, time. Deciding your troop and your groups. Don't say it out loud so others can hear you. All right, here we go. Ready for prompt number 3? And what is the common element? So here's what it is. You have this plus something and you'll get that. But you have this, those are seeds, just for you to know. Plus the same something will give you that. 1 minute. What is it that that question mark is? What does it stand for? Go. You got it? All done? You all have it? No, I'm not gonna ask right now. I'm gonna ask in a few minutes. All right. Okay, are we done with this one? Yes? We all have it. All right. So I love this buzz. I love this buzz. Now, here's the next one. What happens when we have premature career identity? So this is real research, and this is what they're saying. And what should have happened there is that we should have had a little balloon in that slide. But it's okay. I'm going to ask you, what happens when we have premature career identity? 1 minute. So a career identity is a structure of meanings in which the individual links their motivation, interests, and competencies with acceptable career roles. What happened when that is prematurely installed in students? So I think time. All right. Now, table, roll drum, roll drum. The moment of truth, folks. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Thank you. We're going to find out what you found out. We're going to do a little show and tell. But here's how we're going to do this. I'm giving you 2 minutes to come across with something that you're going to walk away with. From what you have played and learned about yourself, I'm going to give you a few minutes to talk it out, just 2 minutes. What are you walking away with? What is your learning from everything? 2 minutes. When we're talking about purpose, we're talking about how we have our own lenses of purpose. We're talking about how we shape purpose. So 2 minutes, what have you learned with your group? All right, all right, all right. So attention back. The fact that we're continuing the conversation means that it's not over, and that is absolutely true. This is ongoing conversation. This is ongoing insight, reflection. And I'm so happy to hear how engaged you are, everyone, because we are committed, right? So what we're going to do is that I'm going to thank you for doing your show and tell with your team. What's really important is how you walk away from this room with the information and that note to self that you just made. All right. So now we're going to move a little bit on to where do we go from here?
Thank you. So we've articulated some issues, some problems, some challenges. We want to have you walk away saying, uh-oh, all my, students are headed for this like grim future of despair because they've articulated their career paths too early. So where do we go from here? How do we get our students to come to a more authentic place in how they think about their future and how they're going to find careers that are interesting and meaningful, that are drivers, authentic drivers? Because I know for me, what gets me up in the morning is I find my work incredibly interesting and incredibly meaningful. And I want that for every single student I serve. So one of the governing questions that I choose to go forward with my students, and as we think about this rapidly changing world of work, there are some things that I think are going to be constant for students. And one of those big burning questions, rather than who do you want to be when you grow up, rather than what career do you want, is what kind of problems do you like to solve? Think about that. What are the kinds of problems you like to solve? Because what is interesting and meaningful for me may not be interesting and meaningful for you. My sister works in a computer-based field, and what is interesting and meaningful for her, she gets bugs out of code. To me, I would hurl myself off the top of a building if I had to do that every day, right? I just would. Like, it's so not what gives me meaning. And so for me, it's very different. So the kinds of problems she likes to solve on a daily basis are wildly different from the kinds of problems I like to solve on a daily basis. So I say to students, is it that you like to solve a problem with how to articulate yourself in writing? Is it that you like to solve a problem with how to fix a computer program and get it running and doing something? What are the problems that you are personally driven in your own life to solve? Or do you like artistically rendering something in paint to present something? So think about that, and you can do reflective exercises with your students about that, because we all have solutions we like to find. We all like to innovate. We all like to analyze and synthesize different things. But what are those pieces of the puzzle that are things that speak to you, the problems you like to solve, the challenges that you enjoy taking on that speak to who you are organically, is going to get me so much further than what do you want to be when you grow up? What job title do you want? Because it's going to it's going to sound good to all these other external stakeholders in your lives who are well-meaning and who love you. But the authenticity is what's going to keep you going and help you find joy day in, day out in your daily lives. So that's how I like to approach. And
Thank you. Okay, actually, can we go back to the previous slide for a second? The previous slide. Yeah. Okay. Before we get to that topic, I just want to do a quick experiential exercise. Can I have everybody close their eyes? Just close your eyes. Listen along to what I'm saying, and just empty your mind. Okay. So you are now entering a world which is a completely blank slate. It's empty. There's nothing there. It's your own canvas. You are going to start building your own world. In this world, there are no rules of what is possible and what is not. Forget the laws of gravity, forget the laws of sound, light, everything. This is your world. It can be anything you want it to be. Take a moment to build out the visuals. Let it fill your mind. What does your surrounding look like? What are you seeing? Who are you in this world? And what are you doing? Let the picture fill your mind. Take a moment to just see how you're feeling in your world. Okay, and whenever you're ready, you may open your eyes. Welcome back to Earth. Some very reluctantly. So we seem to be in a really happy place. How are you feeling? Great. Anyone care to share what they saw? Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Okay. You love water, yeah. Wow. Isn't that a world we all want to visit? Just really floating around like that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And anyone wants to share how they felt after doing that exercise? Yeah. Okay. It's totally fine. That's great. That's totally fine. Oh, lovely. Thank you for sharing that. And I could see that a lot of you genuinely looked so happy and at peace. And this, okay, the reason that we did this is there was there was no judgment in your world, right? You could build it out to whatever you wanted it to be. That's the safe space from which a child needs to start thinking about their life and purpose. If they start from that really safe space of absolutely no judgment, it's going to open up this possibility for them to express what they really think and feel, which in a normal conversation, if they sit across the desk from you and you're starting a conversation on what they could do in the future, it's often colored with all these preconceived notions and checklists of what they're supposed to say. They already come in with, we covered this earlier in the session about the parental expectation and the inherited purpose and a lot of other external factors that might be running primarily in their mind. But if we as counselors are able to create a non-judgmental, safe space where they feel like they can say anything and do anything, it's a good starting point to then build it out. And another reason I brought up this example was, we often use the word be practical when we think about it. Have you used this at some point and we're telling them what they should plan to be practical? It's not a bad thing, they should be practical. Maybe let the dream not be practical, let the pathway to get there be practical. So let the dream start big, let it start abstract, let it start wide, and then you can help them build a path to get there. And the reason I say this is because, do we remember this cartoon George Jetson that we saw eons ago in 74, right? Wasn't there a little robot housekeeper in Jetson which started? Then in 2015, we had Iron Man. And then his assistant Jarvis became the next like AI assistant. And in 2015, we had Sophia. So what started as something that was an idea in a cartoon in 1974 became reality in 2015. And that's when, again, the world was moving slowly. So my point with this very abstract example was just to say that let's not limit possibilities. Let the dream start wild. Let's help them build a path that's practical to explore what opportunities are available to get there. But let's start by creating a safe space to say, be who you are. It's okay to say whatever you need to say, express yourself however you need to, and let's build together. So I don't want to take too much time because I'm mindful, but I'll hand it over to my colleague for the next section.
Your colleague can't get away from her chair right trapped in the back there. So let's talk about some ways that you can help your students identify what their gifts and desires are, right? Because we have to create this environment and this atmosphere for students to have this this opportunity. So some of the ways that you can help your students identify their gifts is by taking time to get to know your students and give them the space to talk about their own desires that they have. So you have to create that atmosphere. But you can also provide opportunities for them to feature their talent. So this could be in the form of a talent show. And you wouldn't think that a talent show would have such an impact on others' thinking, right? But if you give that opportunity for students to showcase what their talents are, not only will they be able to demonstrate those, but they'll be able to see what other people's are as well, right? And maybe that will spark something in them, like, I could do that, right? But they didn't know that they could do that before. So it actually creates a different type of environment for them to grow into. But facilitate peer learning as well. This is pretty similar to the talent show idea. Provide that opportunity for group work and just teamwork, because that will also give them time to reflect on the way that another person does something. And it will allow them to think perhaps a little bit differently on how to approach a problem in the future. Offer multiple different paths to learning. So I think we all know, and the next segment's going to talk about this a little bit, about some tests that you could work with that will identify personality traits. But then there's also, there's so many different ways in which people learn, right? So by opening up those multiple paths, you're actually creating a pathway for people to learn in different ways. So that will help them look at things differently as well. And then connect talents to purpose, right? By identifying what those talents are in a student and helping them highlight them, they will be able to identify a purpose for that talent much better. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so let's take a look at the tools of the trade. What is it we're using to build up profile or to build up purpose? And let's explore how we're doing things and what we choose to use. I want like a pose, maybe, like, does that help? So the key word here is reframing. And I wanted to go back and just say, thanking your feedy buddies today, and, giving you a shout out about how you overcame your traditional ways of selecting people to work with, and also taking a step out of your comfort zone to answer these questions that you had before. What you did was an exercise in framing how you see things. The same invitation applies for how we use our tools and why we use them for. So a lot of the times, and you will find that in your resources for the counselor handbook that you received for the conference, there is a page on building a profile, and there's even a really cool sheet on building a profile. That is not all. It's true. I mean, sometimes we get hung up, and you know why? Because we're busy, because we have so many kids that we would rather do it all than not do anything. And I will take you back to your intention and the impact. And at this moment, the impact should be what is on your mind. So let's take a look at what happens when we just focus on that profile and how that is connected to how students see themselves. So Theresa said something about that checklist. So what happens to that student that can't fill that checklist? Are they not good enough? But that's the message you're giving them if you're focusing on that. Did you think about that? And then the other piece is that when you say all of these in the checklist, then are they not perfect enough if they can't handle it all and not do it well? So these are things that unwillingly we're putting out there, and they are impacting the well-being of our students. There is research, and it's called, one of them is called Smart Girls, and I'd invite you to see it. And it's building up on how girls in particular set up these high standards for themselves so that they can be seen, they can be heard, so that they can have an impact and a voice. And what ends up happening is that extreme effort becomes normal. And when you have that normal, you're incentivizing chronic stress. And that's really something that we're doing when we're focusing on the profile and not on the person. So how can we manage this? How can we reframe the tools of the trade in a way that we are focusing on the purpose, on what students want, on their passions, and the language that we choose and how we do it? So I'm just going to give some tips or things that have worked in the past. And the first is, if you are going to be using a questionnaire, don't use just one source of information. When you're going to have that meeting about purpose, have them bring their list of accomplishments, have them their photos of the things that they've done that they've been happy with, videos, the things that they've created, like have them think about themselves beyond the result on a test or the list that they have. So asking them to bring different things is going to be helpful in breaking that mold of square. The other thing that I would say is that how many times we get these reports from psychometric testing, and the first thing they do is reading, cognitive, like they fraction people. And yeah, these are results, but my recommendation would be go to the conclusion first. Get the big picture first, focus on the big picture, and then go back and say, this is why you're so strong you're interested in engineering is there, because look at the math, you really enjoy math. But this is why. It's not this plus this makes you. Okay, it's the whole piece. And that piece alone is reframing the conversation in a way that you are proceeding as a person, a holistic person, not a part of the person. Okay. And the other thing I would say is that how many times has it happened that you have a test and it gives you 7 things that students can do? And students like, these don't relate. Doesn't that happen? Like you're saying, like, how does it relate? Well, exactly. It's the student's job to find the foundation. How are those connected? What connects all these 6 jobs? That's what the student is showing in this. It's not that they should do this job. It's that career, these 6 careers together, what is the common denominator? And focus your conversation around that. Because that means that this is something that you're bringing to the table. This is a skill, this is a joy, this is your purpose. How do we get that purpose then here and here and here? So that creates flexibility and you are reframing that conversation. So folks, believe it or not, we've been here an hour. I hope that you feel that it hasn't been that long. For us, it's been really great. Do we have a few? No, we don't have. So we have at 9:30. So I would like to say thank you, Feedy buddies. And you've been amazing. Thank you for being here.